welcome to another gauge demo from flipgauges.com. Today I'm going to show you an updated video for my custom checklist gauge, which also includes the custom checklist creator. On the main menu we have a little indication of what the buttons and dials do. S1 will take you into the settings page. The left dial will move your list up and down 1 tick, and the right dial will move your list up and down 5 ticks, and the S6 button will tick the currently displayed item. Now you can use the S6 or the left dial to move into the list. The list will come initially blank, and there are 300 lines for you to use within the list, and there is a checklist preloaded on the S2 button, and we'll check that out in a second. The S6 button is used to tick the list 1 line at a time, and when you tick the list just progresses upwards. Now you can see that the ticked colours are green and the unticked are black. Now these colours are customizable, but you also need to bear in mind that the S5 button that switches the themes will use the same colours. Now if you do customize the colours, you need to make certain that it works well with your chosen colour theme. It may not work very well if you switch it. So if you have a very dark blue text and switch the background to black, you're not going to see it. So once you've changed the default colours, then you need to make certain they work with whatever theme that you're going to select, whether it's the light or dark. Now when I switch the colours and they're not edited, the black will automatically switch to white text and the white text will switch to black. The green won't change on the themes, but once you've made these colour changes, they won't switch when you switch the themes. It will keep your custom colours. Okay, so the left dial can be used to scroll the list up and down 1 line at a time, and the right 5 lines at a time. Okay, so we're going to load in the default list that comes with the gauge, so you can see how that works. You literally just press S2 button and then all the pre-coded checklist data will be loaded from the button. So that will show the custom checklist for the 737. Okay, so I'm just going to go into SPAD and I'm going to reset all those variables. Okay, let's go back into the list. Now the S2 button is where you save your data, your XML code, and we'll cover that in a moment. You create your checklist as an XML and basically paste it into SPAD. That pastes in on the button, which you then press, and then your checklist is loaded. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how you download the checklists that are available from our website and how to load those into the gauge. Okay, so here we are in the flipgauges.com website. So you can either download the checklists from the gauge page or from the free downloads option here in the left sidebar of the website. So we're going to do it from the actual gauge page. So we go to checklists, custom, and there are 2 links for the checklists in the gauge page itself. So we're going to click on that. This checklists.zip, not only does it include the checklists that come with the gauge, but it also includes the free custom checklist creator application as well. So we'll click on that to download. Okay, that's downloaded to my download folder. Okay, so in the downloads folder you can open up the zip file or uncompress it. So we are just going to extract all. Okay, once extracted, it will open it up, and in there is some documentation that I'm working on. This is being replaced, but that's the old documentation for manually editing the checklists. I'm in the process of creating the new documents for that. So in the zip file you will have the application that will create checklists and also a set of checklists that are already preloaded as well. So we'll open up the checklists, and these are the lists that are available. This will grow as we add new lists, and as the community adds new lists and sends them to me, I'll add them to the download. So I'm just going to pick one at random. We'll pick the Cessna Realistic one, which is a port from the old Cessna list, and we'll just open that. Now you can just literally copy all of the text. You can then come over to SPAD.next, and then we're going to click on the S2 button and select paste. You will get a confirmation. This is a good sign. It indicates that it likes the code. If you don't see this, do you want to replace everything, then it means the code that you're submitting is not valid and it's broken. Then we'd have to go back and revisit why that's not working. But this is a good sign that the code has been accepted by SPAD, and you just need to confirm the overwrite by saying yes. You'll get the confirmation tone that it's overwritten, and now you just need to press the S2 button to load the Cessna checklist. So we'll do one more. So let's close that. We'll open up the icon A5, copy everything, go back to SPAD, S2 button, paste the code, yes, confirm, and then we press the S2 button on the gauge, and now we have the icon A5 list in the gauge. So that's how you load in your checklists. Basically you take the XML and just paste it on the button. Now, while I recommend using the S2 button on the checklist gauge, it's free to use. You can in fact save this XML on any button within your simulator setup. So if you have half a dozen spare buttons, you can actually stick a different checklist on each button and then activate them immediately by pressing any of those buttons. Okay, so now we're going to cover how to actually create your own checklists. Now, I did have a process where you would manually edit the XML in Notepad++, and while that works, and the video that I've got still posted will actually show you how to do that manually, the app takes the pain away of setting all the indexes and sorting the XML. It is a lot cleaner and a lot easier to use the application than it was to use the original method. So this came about from a customer on my Discord channel who says, how about create an app to do it all for you? And I thought, yeah, that's a good idea, and then the app was created. So I'm going to take you through showing that now. So in the download, the app is actually included. So we'll go to the checklist creator, currently version 5, so it's 1.005, and no doubt that will be different by the time you download this, because I'm constantly updating this app, so that may be a different version at the time of watching. So for now, version 5 will open up that folder, and now we have the application inside there. So I also have in the creator folder a set of checklists, which are the raw text files that I use to create the XML. So I'll just open the Cessna Realistic one that we had earlier, and you can see from here that you basically just have the raw text file that gets imported into the XML, and then you can pump into the gauge itself. So they can be used as starting points if you want to create your own based on an existing list that we have. So let's go back to the application. We'll run the application. Now, the application isn't digitally signed. Sorry about that, I can't do that right now. So if you get this warning, it says, don't run it, but it is safe to run. But I would always recommend virus checking any app you download from the internet anyway, but you just simply click on the more information and then say run anyway. Okay, so once the app has loaded, this is the basic interface. You can set your checklist title here at the top. Now this title is what appears over on the top of your checklist on the FIP. So you need to label that appropriately for your gauge list. The left hand box is for creating the text lists. The right hand box is where your XML code will appear that we'll copy into the gauge. And you have a box down the bottom right that will show any errors that are created during the process, and you'll also have a section here that will enable you to insert a few checklist headers. These are optional, they're there if you want to use them, and they can help you structure your checklist if you don't know where to start. So we'll just grab the first entry and that will chuck a title in on the list. You can then start adding your text into the checklist as you like, and then you can add another entry. We'll go for start checklist, and then you can just carry on entering your text as you please. Okay, so these bars down the right hand side, the grey bars on the editor list, is basically the edge of the screen on the FIP. So if you go beyond that first grey line, anything afterwards won't appear. So if we, for instance, just had a few spaces and then chuck that over, those last two characters there won't appear on the fib. Now, there are some times where the second line is used, and that sometimes there are special characters in the text file which are illegal. Now, we basically have 4 illegal characters. They are greater than, smaller than, and double quotation marks. So they're illegal characters, but they can be replaced with character codes. The character codes will actually make the line longer than it's actually going to appear in the checklist, and I'll show you that in a bit more detail in a little while. So the second line will show you where your line will cut off if alternative codes are actually used. Okay, so we'll use this as a test, and we'll try and format this to fit in the checklist, and it will detect these illegal characters and then advise what to do about those. So we're going to process list by simply saying let's create the SPAD XML by copying this data into this window, and when you press the button it will say select your checklist title. That's because I haven't set one. So if you don't change it from the default, it's going to say, please set a title for your checklist. So I will change that to "Does this demo." Okay, so I'll hit the button, and now it's started to create the checklist. The list has gone red. It's indicated that it is failed, and there are some errors down below. It's saying that line 8 has the illegal character of greater than in the list, and the tip is to replace the greater than symbol with the and GT semicolon characters, which is the code conversion for greater than. It's the XML friendly greater than symbols. So you can come back here and you can just manually edit that if you really wanted to, and greater than semicolon, and then reprocess it. It'll be happy with that line, but now it's failing the illegal character on the following line of the less than symbol. Now, to save you having to go through your text and trying to find where these illegal characters are, you can just press the button that says make that change for me, and it will convert this symbol to this code. So I'm going to say do that for me, and it's converted the codes over here. So again, I'm going to try and process it, and it's now complaining about the and character in the list, and it's saying do you want to replace the and with plus. Okay, so we can do this for me. Now with the ands, it's slightly different because obviously I don't want to replace the and on these codes anymore. So it will be looking for an and with a space afterwards. Generally you'll have a word, space, and then another word. So it will look for the and a space to replace. So I'm going to tell it to do it for me, and it's replaced that and space with a plus space. And we'll go and process it again, and it's saying it's found illegal characters quotations and make the change, and it has changed it to a single quote and processed the checklist, and it's come back complete. Okay, so there is an error generated even though the list is completed. It's basically saying that one line has been clipped, and you'll see that there's a remmed out statement up here just saying that your line is being clipped, and this is an indication that this is one of those lines that have been clipped. So it detects that you've got some characters going over the top, and it's saying that basically we've clipped that. It will actually keep the last 3 characters over anyway. Anything over the last line will actually be clipped within the XML, and it won't be submitted. So what we'll do, we'll just then grab a copy of this, so you can click the copy to clipboard button, and that will copy the checklist into the clipboard. Then we can switch over to SPAD, select the S2 button, event paste. We've got a good sign that it's a valid code, and then we'll just say yes. Now we can press the S2, and as this demo checklist has actually kicked in. Now you can see that you do actually see the H, but it is slightly clipped off. So generally the idea is that you don't type text beyond the first line unless you're happy for it to show that character very, very close to the edge. Okay, so now I'm going to show you what the second line is indicated to do. So let's start off with a new line. Let's say flaps larger than 25 degrees. Now if you want, you can hit the check button, and that will pad the line out with dots and a check on the end. So we'll basically process this file now, and it's going to complain about this greater than symbol. So we'll then say do it for me, and what it's going to do is going to change that greater than symbol to and GT semicolon, which is obviously 3 characters bigger now than it was before. So you're now seeing that your line is hitting the second bar, and it's not being clipped because these 3 characters will eventually be ignored by SPAD, and it will pull your checklist back in. So it's basically a way of showing you that if you've had your line modified, that it's going to not get clipped basically. So we'll do that once more. We'll say, yeah, do it for me. And it's added that character. It's gone over the top. It's actually not detected it as a clipped line because it knows that even though it's 3 characters longer, it's not going to be clipped because of that special character in it. So we're going to copy that to the clipboard. We are going to paste that into the gauge, activate, and then we'll scroll down. And there you go. You can see that the check is perfectly aligned with the edge of the screen, even though it's got that special character, which has been converted by SPAD from the XML code into an actual greater than symbol for the checklist itself. Okay, so in addition to adding the ... check at the end, if there is no challenge response and you want a default one, you can just use that, or you can use your own challenge response and pad them with dots and spaces. So let's do another example. So let's say we go pitot heat, and then we're going to go on. You can drop the cursor here, as you can say, pad with dots, and that will put your challenge response to the edge of the page. So let's do another one. Let's do flats as required. Oops. And we'll pad that out with spaces. And it will always put the challenge response and align it with the edge of the screen. So we'll do one more. And we'll just add a check on that. So you can use these buttons for padding spaces, padding dots, or adding a ... check on the end. And wherever you put the cursor, it will break it and then insert your, if this is your challenge and this is your response, you can simply put the cursor there and hit the dots button, and that will move it over. And we can do that for the list. So I have some example code that I can copy in and show you how the dots and spaces and the check can be used to format lists quite quickly. Okay, so I'm literally going to copy all of that, and I'm going to paste some data I've just got off the internet. So this is just a checklist that I've just pasted. This is the shutdown part of a Cessna citation. So we're just going to show how this works. So parking brake set. So we can click here and go dot set standby power off, and with dots throttle idle cutoff, add dots, passenger signs off, add dots there, air conditioning, add avionics and gas off. Now so you don't have to use dots, you can use spaces. Off, use some spaces there. And now we're going to chuck that over. It says there is an invalid and in the list. Now it says it's on line 5 and it is there. Now again, we can just use the do it for me, and that will replace the and with a plus, and it's reprocessed it, and now it's completed and there's no errors detected at all. We can copy it to the clipboard. It's going to use my DAS demo because I haven't changed that, and we'll just now paste that into the gauge, and now we've got that checklist with our spacing and gaps formatted as well. Okay, so in the download I've also provided the raw text files as well for the gauges, so you can load those at any time. So you can go to the creator checklists and all the text files, and you can open these. So you can open the King Air one, and that will load the existing stuff. There are a couple I haven't finished. They have a little bit of overhang, some clipping, so I haven't finished all of these gauges, but I'm working on them slowly. So we can load any of those text files at any time, and then you can just copy those across and then paste those into the gauge. So you can also save your edited list as well. So if you make a change to this, you might just want to take that line out, and then you can just save your text, and you can save it to a new file or override the existing files. So you can create your lists and save the raw text lists so that you can go back and re-edit them another time. So once you've completed the list, please make sure you save it so that you've got something you can go back to and you can edit and you can work on it. Now, worst case scenario, you can always load back the text from the XML files. So I'll show you how to do that. So what we'll do, we'll clear that out, we'll clear out the XML, and we're going to go to the gauge. So at the moment I've got the Boeing 737 default checklist loaded into the gauge, and now if I come in here, instead of do the paste, if I do a copy all events, I've now copied all the events for this S2 button as an XML. So when I come to here, I can, in fact, if I click in the XML window and do a paste, I'm actually pasting the code that's come from the gauge. You can now click on this button, which will then create text from the XML and will reverse engineer it back to the text. So you can recreate your text lists from the XML, or you can edit somebody else's XMLs, make the changes, and then pump those back into the gauge if you want to. So you can work in both directions. You can create XML from text or text from XML. I have added a Save XML button, so you can save your compiled XML if you really want to. I mean, there's no real need, because once you've copied it into the checklist, it's saved in the profile within SPAD. But if you keep your original text, then you can always recreate the XML whenever you wanted to. But if you want, you can just add XML. Now, if you want to share this with the community, by all means, save your XML and then post it in my Discord channel on the custom checklist gauge channel. And I'll be grateful if you want to share that stuff, because I can add it to the download for everybody. Okay, so while you can edit the text in the XML within the editor window, I wouldn't advise it. It's very important that these index numbers are kept in perfect sequence, and that the list also contains 300 lines, even if you're not using lines after the end of your checklist. So it does need to even just blank these. So your list may end at line 183, but if the checklist that's loaded ends over 200, then you're only going to be updating lines 1 to 83 and not blanking out anything below. So it's important that we add these blanking lines in, so it will just blank out any checklist that's actually been created and loaded into the FIP currently. So best thing is not to edit this file, because it needs to remain at the right length and it needs to be perfectly indexed. You don't want to start cutting and pasting this list around. It will get very messy. So always work with the raw text and then process the XML using the Create SPAD XML button to recreate it. Never edit the change here. If you realize, oh, that should actually be off and not on, yes, you could edit it there, and you can then copy clipboard and save it over. But it's always best, just to be safe, to change it on this side on the left and then reprocess it and then send that over and save your changes. So if you've had the pleasure of checking out my other gauge video for the checklist, which shows you how to edit the XML in Notepad and to resequence the indexes, it's fun, and if you've seen that, you'll appreciate how much easier it is using this application. Now, if you are worried about using the app and the Windows warnings about it, then feel free to have a look at the other video that we've got for the checklist, and you can quite happily, if you want, actually create the XML checklist yourself in Notepad++. It is quite a painful process. It does work. I wouldn't have published this with that original process if it didn't. You just have to be careful with the index numbers and the line numbering, because if that's not right, it won't work. And I've had a few cases where the list has been incomplete and there have been missing indexes and stuff. So while it does work, it is open to making lots of mistakes, and you will find that this process generally won't make any errors, and it will import each time. Now, the other video will show you what happens when the list is incorrect and or formatted badly, it basically won't paste into the checklist, and you won't get that nice indication, do you want to overwrite the data within the gauge. It will just give you a bling sound to say that it doesn't like the code. So you are much better off using this app because you don't have to worry about the XML formatting at all. But again, if you don't want to use this app, you can revert to manual programming of the XML, but just say follow the guide and you shouldn't hopefully go too wrong. Now you might find my list is slightly in different formats. You can see while I have a challenge and a response on this particular gauge, I've actually got them all right justified with the same sort of padding length of dots, so they're not actually justified to the right edge of the screen, but you can simply just, if you want, just rectify that by just adding more padding in if you want them all the same. Unfortunately, it's a slow process of going through each line step by step if you really want to do it this way, but obviously you design it and create it and work out what you want to do. You don't have to pad it at all if you really don't want to, but you know, you do have the tools here to play around with this. Unfortunately, you do have to tick where you want the padding to go. It doesn't know where you want that padding to start, so just tick the position where you want to add the padding and it will just pad that for you. Okay, so I'll leave that there. Hopefully you like this demo. If you have seen that other video, you will appreciate this is a lot better, and recommend wholly that you use this going forward. It's going to make me supporting it a lot easier because generally you won't end up having any formatting errors using this. Any problems, then please let me know, and do please join my Discord channel and come and chat within the community regarding the custom checklist gauge, and don't forget to post any creations that you've done. So thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and don't forget to come and check out some of our other videos. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.